After dying on the operating table 99 times, I finally overheard a conversation between my wife, the lead surgeon, and her intern. So, what does someone look like when they're losing too much blood? Easy. Watch me slice open his artery and not stop the bleeding. You'll see in about 10 minutes. I was completely paralyzed and couldn't call for help, forced to watch as all the blood drained from my body. Before I passed out completely, I heard my wife and the intern calling out in a panic, "He's crashing." Code blue. When I woke up again, I was back to 1 hour before the surgery. Ryan, you're awake? Why are you covered in sweat? It's just a minor surgery. Are you really this nervous? I turned my head and saw my wife standing by my bedside, wearing faded scrubs under her white coat, her eyes as gentle as the day we first met. My wife, Ashley, the associate director of surgery, with dozens of surgeries under her belt, respected by everyone at St. Jude's Hospital. But the sight of her made my stomach churn. You're the lead surgeon today? My voice was hoarse, even my tone was trembling. Of course. You're my husband, who else would it be? She leaned down and kissed my forehead. Don't worry, I've prepared everything perfectly. I even picked the most obedient intern as my assistant. I froze. That terrifying conversation flooded back into my mind like a venomous snake. So, what does someone look like when they're losing too much blood? Easy. Watch me slice open his artery and not stop the bleeding. You'll see in about 10 minutes. I started to shake all over, not because I was afraid of the surgery, but because I was afraid of dying again at the hands of her and that intern named Joey. I don't want you as my lead surgeon. I threw back the blanket, stumbled out of the hospital bed. I'm not doing it. Or change surgeons, change them now. Ashley was stunned for a moment, then her smile stiffened. Why, you're kidding, right? Does it look like I'm kidding? I ripped open the hospital gown, tore out the foredrip, my voice practically screamed from my lungs. Change surgeons, or I'm checking myself out. The anesthesiologist, head nurse, and 2 residents outside the hospital room door heard the commotion and rushed in. Even my parents hurried in from the hallway. The atmosphere instantly became heavy. What are you doing? My mom looked at Ashley with an embarrassed expression, then glared at me. Your wife is so professional, she's doing the surgery for you herself, and you're complaining? My dad frowned as well. Are you having some pre-op anxiety, son? Should we get a nurse to give you a sedative? Ashley crouched down next to me, gently coaxing me. Didn't you sleep well the last few nights? You were happy to have me as the lead surgeon before. I changed my mind. I gritted my teeth. I don't trust you. Or that intern. The atmosphere froze. Joey, the 6 feet 1 inch intern with a clean, sunny smile, took a few steps forward from the doorway, his tone as gentle as a startled deer. Ryan, did I do something wrong? I've always respected you, I even made you tea this morning. As soon as he said that, everyone turned to look at me. The head nurse frowned. Mr. Ryan, Joey is Dr. Ashley's most prized intern. He has excellent character. Sounds like you're just lashing out. The anesthesiologist muttered under his breath. Ashley grabbed my hand, patting it slowly like she was calming a mental patient. Okay, I promise, Joey won't be in the operating room. He won't, okay? I stared intently into her eyes, trying to find a crack in that delicate face. But her smile was too natural, too confident, like she really was a good wife willing to make concessions for her husband. I swallowed hard, my eyes starting to water. As long as he's not in the operating room, you can be the lead surgeon. I'll accept it. Ashley sighed in relief and nodded to the people behind her. Everyone, go back to what you were doing, Don't scare Ryan. The crowd slowly dispersed, and the hospital room door was gently closed. I lay back down on the hospital bed, but I still couldn't feel any sense of security. This time, as long as that intern wasn't there, it shouldn't be like before, right? As the anesthesia was injected into my body, Ashley whispered in my ear, "Close your eyes, you'll feel better when you wake up." I instinctively wanted to grab her hand, but I couldn't grab anything. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier, but my heart grew colder and colder. I told myself, this time it won't happen. She said Joey wouldn't be in the operating room. But I still couldn't be sure. I forced my eyes open, looking at the operating room lights with the last bit of clarity I had. Footsteps came from outside the door, getting closer and closer. Then, I saw him again. Joey. That face with the ever-present sincere smile walked familiarly to Ashley's side. My eyes twitched, I wanted to shout, but I couldn't make a sound. How did you get in here? Ashley's voice was low, sounding like a complaint and a flirtation at the same time. I followed the scrub nurse in. Joey smiled innocently. Dr. Ashley, I told you, I just wanted to see you operate on him. It's so beautiful. After saying that, he actually reached out and grabbed her hand, the one wearing the surgical glove, his eyes full of fervor. My breathing became rapid, my chest felt like it was being crushed by a boulder. What hurt me even more was that my wife didn't reject him at all. Instead, she tilted her head slightly towards him and said with a suppressed, coquettish laugh, "Keep your voice down, the anesthesiologist is outside. Don't worry, they're all busy. No one can hear us." Joey leaned in a little closer, his tone as ambiguous as lovers whispering sweet nothings. "I'm so jealous of your husband, getting to enjoy you cutting him open." My pupils dilated in shock, my fists clenched subconsciously, but my muscles were already paralyzed. They were already having an affair. "Didn't you say you weren't coming today?" Ashley asked softly. Joey smiled and said, "You believed me when I said I wasn't coming?" Then, in broad daylight, he shamelessly kissed Ashley on the cheek. My mind exploded, and my blood seemed to freeze in an instant. Ashley, she actually closed her eyes and enjoyed his kiss. "Honey." His voice was as sticky as a snake's tongue. "I want to see what someone looks like when they're losing too much blood again. You stopped the bleeding too quickly last time." When I heard that, I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs. But my throat was as if it was being held shut, and even my tongue was out of control. Ashley sighed softly and gripped the scalpel in her hand. "Shut up, stop messing around. Watch closely this time." "Okay." Joey laughed. "I'll watch carefully how you drain him dry." I couldn't hold back anymore, and tears streamed down from the corners of my eyes. Not because of the pain, but because of the disgust. I closed my eyes. Not to cooperate with the surgery, but because I didn't want to see this world anymore. In the last second before I lost consciousness, I heard Ashley whisper, "Thank you, Joey. I really love your eyes. When you look at me with that adoring gaze, it makes me feel like all those years of hard work to become the lead surgeon were worth it." The 101st time I opened my eyes in the hospital bed, I didn't yell or scream. I just slowly sat up and gently pressed the 4-drip button. The nurse who came in was startled, because she saw a kind of chilling calmness in my eyes. "I want to check out," I said. The nurse was stunned. "But you have surgery scheduled for today, cancel it." I looked at her calmly, even a slight smile appeared on my lips. "Get the president to sign the discharge papers." 10 minutes later, 3 associate directors, the head of the medical affairs department, and even President Zhang himself came to the hospital room. My wife came too, wearing light blue scrubs, standing behind the crowd, her expression filled with disbelief. "Ryan, what's wrong with you now?" Her voice was as gentle as ever, but it couldn't hide the undercurrents. "Didn't we agree on everything yesterday? Don't be afraid, don't you trust your wife's skills?" "That's right," I stared into her eyes. "I don't." The entire room went silent for 3 seconds. I threw back the blanket, pulled the 4-needle out of my arm. "President, I'm not just having a fight with Ashley, I really don't want to have the surgery. And I definitely don't want her as the lead surgeon. Or don't blame me for causing a scene right now." The president stepped forward. "Mr. Ryan, we understand your anxiety, but Dr. Ashley is one of the most highly skilled lead surgeons at St. Jude's Hospital. I want someone else." I cut him off. "I want Dr. George as the lead surgeon, the oldest one in the whole hospital. I don't trust anyone but him. Also," I said, each word filled with icy coldness, "no one is allowed to assist with the surgery, especially my wife, Ashley, and Joey." Dr. George was a taciturn old doctor. When he heard that I was a special patient approved by the president, he didn't ask any questions and nodded in agreement. On the day of the surgery, everyone was smiling nervously. My wife stood at the hospital room door, holding breakfast in one hand and adjusting her sleeves with the other, her tone cautious and a little bit scolding. "Ryan, stop making a fuss, the people at the hospital are starting to think we're getting a divorce. How am I supposed to maintain my reputation at the hospital if you keep questioning my medical skills like this?" I didn't say anything, I just stared at her for a long time, until her eyes flickered away. I lay back down on the hospital bed and handed myself over to the anesthesiologist once again. As that familiar coldness rushed up my veins, I felt a sense of relief for the first time. At least this time, he wouldn't be the one operating on me. But just before I lost consciousness, a voice slowly came from above my head. "Mr. Ryan, don't be nervous, your wife insisted on assisting with the surgery, saying she was worried about your mental state and had to be there to accompany you. Oh, and her intern assistant, that Joey, said he wanted to learn." I wanted to struggle. But it was too late. The anesthesia had already severed my nerves. Intermittent conversations came from the operating room. "Dr. George, your cuts are so steady." Don't talk, watch." "Dr. Ashley, stand over there, you're not helping with the operation." When I woke up, I was in the hospital room. Before me was the bright sunlight outside the window, the air was dry, and my chest didn't feel like it was on fire. I gently lifted the blanket and felt my abdomen. Stitches, gauze, dry tape, all there. I finally made it out of the operating room alive. Ashley pushed open the hospital room door, holding a bowl of hot soup in her hand. "Ryan, the surgery's over, it went very well, see, I told you I wouldn't hurt you." I looked at her, and suddenly didn't know what to say. Maybe these 101 reincarnations were just hallucinations? Maybe she was just a cold doctor, but not cruel enough to be a murderer? "You should rest well. I told the directors that you need to build your strength back after the surgery," she said softly, like a dutiful wife. Something's wrong. The hospital room door was kicked open. Joey rushed in, holding a registration form in his hand, his face terrified. "Something's wrong, a scalpel is missing." "It really is missing." The scrub nurse's voice trembled, and the hand holding the instrument tray was shaking. Cold sweat dripped down. The air in the hospital room instantly froze, and everyone was stunned. How could it be missing? We counted them before the surgery. Dr. George, the lead surgeon, frowned and roared. The nurse's lips trembled, and her eyes turned red. I do. Can't believe it either, but I've turned the tray over 3 times. Really, a small scalpel is missing. I was stunned, and my eyelid twitched violently. "Are you saying?" My throat was so dry that I could barely speak. "The scalpel might still be inside me?" The doctor's faces changed drastically, and a heavy shadow called medical malpractice descended. "We have to confirm," Dr. George decided. "Arrange for a second surgery immediately, open him up and check." I suddenly propped myself up. "No! Wait a minute. Are you sure there isn't a mistake?" Did someone, before I could finish speaking, a sharp pain suddenly shot through my abdomen, as if I was being cut by a knife, making me tremble all over. I grabbed the edge of the hospital bed with both hands, and cold sweat poured out. I understood. It was Joey. It was him. He hid the scalpel inside my body. He wanted to force me back onto the operating table, back to that killing field with only the 2 of them. "Dr. George is temporarily out and can't be reached by phone." The head nurse looked flustered. "The patient is in severe abdominal pain, we can't delay." Ashley pushed open the hospital room door, already changed into scrubs, all white, her eyes calm beyond belief. "I'll be the lead surgeon, prepare the operating room immediately." "Joey, you assist me." "Got it." Joey seemed to have been waiting for this moment for a long time, a morbid smile rising on his lips. I opened my mouth, wanting to shout, to curse, to escape, even wanting to crawl out of the hospital bed and run away. But I was already in so much pain that I couldn't speak, and I was running out of breath. I was pushed onto a gurney. Ashley and Joey stood at the end of the hallway, one on each side like 2 cold human sculptures, welcoming me to hell. In the pre-op room, an anesthesia needle was inserted into my arm again. The nurse said softly, "Your wife is the lead surgeon, don't be afraid." I closed my eyes, not because I felt safe, but because the fear was too overwhelming, and I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. The moment I was pushed into the operating room, I saw those 2 faces. Ashley stood under the lights, the light shining on her face, and she was actually smiling. Joey stood beside her, his face still clean and gentle, but his eyes were sharper than a scalpel. "Honey, don't be afraid, I'll cut along the same incision, it'll go smoothly." "Dr. Ashley is so meticulous," Joey said softly. "After this medical accident, that old Dr. George will lose his position completely, and you'll be the most authoritative lead surgeon in the whole hospital." Ashley didn't say anything, she just nodded, a smug smile on her face. I wanted to struggle, but my muscles were completely paralyzed by the sedative, and only my consciousness was roaring on the edge of the cliff. Before I completely lost consciousness, I heard Joey say in that venomous and sweet voice, "Don't struggle, you can't escape. Ryan, I've died with you 101 times." Joey. He knew everything. He had been doing this on purpose from the start. Everything went black, and my last bit of consciousness was severed. The 102nd time I opened my eyes, I didn't want to live anymore. God, why are you treating me like this? Just let me die. I'm not waiting any longer. My throat was hoarse, I gritted my teeth, saying each word. I feel disgusted just staying in this damn hospital for another second. I pulled out the needle, tore off the gauze, so violently that blood came out. I threw off the blanket, flipped over, got out of the hospital bed, and ran barefoot to the closet to put on my shoes. Someone knocked on the hospital room door, I locked it. I wasn't begging to change doctors anymore, I wasn't trying to explain anymore. I had to leave. I had to escape this madhouse completely. Outside, the nurse holding the medicine thought something was wrong with me and quickly called people to break open the lock. When they saw me, they were so scared the why almost dropped the tray. "Mr. Ryan, what are you doing? Why your hand is still bleeding, shut up." I roared, pushed her away, and ran straight to the elevator. The entire hallway was in chaos, someone shouted "Stop him," someone pressed the alarm, and security guards started running towards me. But no one could stop me. I ran down 2 flights of stairs, went through the side building's employee entrance into the visiting crowd, stuck close to the back of a middle-aged man visiting a patient, ducked my head as I went through the security door, and slipped into the hospital parking lot. Behind me, someone was shouting, "That patient's gone crazy. He has self-harm tendencies. Report to the hospital leadership immediately." I disappeared into the night. My arm was still bleeding, the wound was gaping open, burning with pain. But I didn't stop, I didn't even dare to breathe too heavily. 2 hours later, I finally knocked on Liam's door. He didn't fully recognize me at first. When he saw my face covered in cold sweat and my clothes stained with blood, his expression changed, and he quickly pulled me inside. "Holy crap, what happened to you? Did Ashley stab you?" "She stabbed me more than once." I gave a wry smile and collapsed on his couch. "No, did she really use a knife this time? Aren't you two been married for a little over 2 years? Is she crazy?" "Not crazy, acting." I closed my eyes, letting him clean my wound with iodine. "She's having an affair with an intern, that intern is named Joey." Liam paused. "And then?" he asked softly. I slowly opened my eyes, stared at the ceiling, and said, word by word, "I've died 102 times." Liam was a medical examiner, naturally calm, and had become numb to death. But when he heard me say reincarnation, his eyes still flickered. "Are you sure they didn't drug you? Do you know that 3 days ago, the emergency room suddenly had a power outage, causing 2 patients to die during resuscitation?" He was startled. "IKN. Ow, it was on the news. That morning, I told them not to let Joey near the power switch." "How did you know that?" I gave a wry smile. "The 86th time I died in that power outage." Liam's face gradually changed. "Are you saying you can remember all the reincarnations? How you died each time?" I nodded. He stood up, paced around the living room a few times, and then said softly, "I've heard of reincarnation. Some patients have a brief flashback of consciousness before they die, some can even predict 5 seconds into the future, but what you're saying is a complete reincarnation?" "Yes." I stared at him. "And it's not just me." Liam frowned. "You're talking about Joey?" I was silent for a second, then said, "Before he killed me the 102nd time, he said something, 'Don't struggle, I've died with you 101 times. The air instantly went silent. "He remembers every time?" Liam's voice was barely audible. "He's a reincarnator too?" I nodded, my voice filled with extremely heavy coldness. "That's why I had to escape. Ashley, she's not the scariest one. She's just a tool being controlled and used. But Joey, he knows everything. And the first thing I need to do now is figure out who Joey is. And why he's so determined to make me die." Are you sure you want me to keep this recording? Liam held up the USB drive, frowning. It's a key. I leaned back on his couch, my voice as low as a curse. Even if I die, I want people to know who killed me. Liam nodded, put the USB drive in the safe, and patted the locked door. Don't worry, I'll send it to media contacts regularly. If I don't hear from you in 3 days, I'll release it. I closed my eyes and took a long breath. Now, help me investigate Joey. We first checked the hospital's internal network files. Joey, male, 26 years old, intern, graduated from B University's clinical medicine department. Average grades, number of assisted surgeries higher than average, noted as excellent performance, can be promoted exceptionally. I stared at the word exceptionally and sneered. Then, Liam took me back to look at the hospital room surveillance footage. In the footage, Ashley brought Joey, frequently entering high-level operating rooms. In one clip, when I was unconscious and anesthetized, Joey sat by my head and said something. I couldn't hear him, but he smiled very gently. This guy is not simple. Liam's expression changed after watching the footage. Don't even mention you, if I were him, I'd want to kill you too. He said half-jokingly. What do you mean? Liam raised his eyebrows. I found something 4 years ago. He was also a student in B University's clinical medicine department. Ashley was a graduate mentor that year, and he was the alternate candidate who didn't make the cut. It said that Ashley voted for you that year, and he was rejected. I was stunned. Liam continued, you two should have met. Ashley was chasing after you pretty hard back then. You could see you two together at the campus clinic every day. I remembered that unfamiliar gaze that was always watching me play ball in the corner during college. I never paid attention to it, but now I realized that was Joey. A guy who had his degree stolen by you, and then watched you win over the beautiful woman. It's normal to be jealous. Liam shook his head. But what's strange is that he's been promoted too quickly in the last 6 months. The hospital's rules state that interns can't assist the lead surgeon, but he not only assisted, but Ashley personally signed him into the operating room every time. I looked at their recent surgery reports. The number of times you died is consistent with the number of times Joey was commended. In other words, every time you die, Joey's resume gets another record of excellent performance. I stared at the data page, my nails digging hard into my palm. So, every time I died, it could be exchanged for Joey's promotion, awards, and commendations, as well as the excellent medical skills halo above Ashley's head. He's treating killing me as a shortcut to the peak of his life. I said coldly. Liam opened an internal chat log from the nurses. I heard that Dr. Ashley's intern Joey is something else. She's even brought him to C-sections for pregnant women. Really? Isn't she afraid of something going wrong? Dr. Ashley said, Joey's hands are steady, he only sees the operating room. My throat tightened, and looking at that Joey, my chest felt like an old wound had been torn open. What's he trying to get out of this? Liam asked me. He's not after my life. I replied, he's after my life. He wants to be me, replace me, take my place, and even take my wife and take her over. Liam was speechless for a long time, and finally just said, bro, you've recruited a madman. I raised my head, my eyes as cold as ice. Even madmen have weaknesses. I'm back. Not with trust, but with an invisible knife. I've figured it out. I looked at Ashley, my voice as light as a breeze. I'll cooperate with the surgery, as long as you're the lead surgeon. She was stunned for a second, then her eyes instantly turned red, as if 2 years' worth of grievances and excitement had burst out. Ryan, you're finally willing to trust me. She walked over and cautiously took my hand, tears falling down. I know I wasn't considerate of you before, it was my fault, but if you're willing to turn back, I can change everything. I lowered my head and said nothing, just gently squeezing her fingertips. From that day on, Ashley was like a different person. She brought breakfast at 6 o'clock every morning, peeled eggs, cut fruit, and even learned the temperature I liked for my bitter tea. She talked to me at night, about the hospital, about the past, about our wedding. Do you remember the high heels I wore on our wedding day that rubbed my feet raw? She chuckled softly. You carried me for 5 bus stops, and you were carrying a bag of wine. I nodded faintly. Her eyes turned red. At that time, I thought, it's so good to be married to you. When she said these words, her eyes were filled with tears, but unfortunately I couldn't tell what was real and what was fake anymore. I could never trust someone who could smile and pick up a knife to attack me on the operating table. I didn't say a word, only my fingers were gently pressing the button under the covers. It was the switch for the recording device I had hidden in advance. In the hospital room bedside table, I also put a backup recording pen, turned on the battery, stuffed it into the drawer, with the microphone facing into the hospital room. The night before the surgery, the wind was particularly strong. The window creaked, as if someone was tearing at something. I lay in hospital bed with my eyes closed, breathing shallowly and slowly, as if I had truly fallen asleep. The hospital room door was gently pushed open, and a pair of footsteps silently stepped inside. I knew who it was. Dr. Ashley, Ryan is cooperating too smoothly this time, don't you think? It's a little strange? It was Joey. I held my breath. What do you mean? Ashley asked in a low voice. I feel like he already knows about us. Joey chuckled, his voice even lower. He yelled at me that day, saying he was going to kick me out of the hospital. Then stay away from him. Ashley said coldly. I'm not afraid of him. Joey leaned in close to her ear, his tone turning cold. I'm afraid that you won't be ruthless enough. The hospital room was silent for a second. He's cooperating so much this time, I'm afraid something's not right. Joey said softly, think about it, if he exposes us, can you still sit in your current position? Honey, if you want to keep your job, he has to die. Are you crazy? Not crazy. Joey said lightly, just treat it as an accidental surgery. Anesthesia error, sudden cardiac arrest during the surgery, failed resuscitation. He leaned in close to her ear and said softly, after that, his property, house, car, it's all yours. You can inherit it with just a certificate. And then, we can get married. The room was quiet for a long time. I felt my heart sinking bit by bit, as if it had been put in ice water. Ashley didn't immediately refute him, she didn't slap him, and she didn't scream and call the police. She just stood there quietly and coldly. 3 seconds later, she spoke. Make it clean. I was completely disillusioned. If she had simply listened to Joey's instigation and unintentionally caused my death, I could have forgiven her. But from that reply onward, she was no longer my wife. The next morning, the sun was shining, and Ashley brought me breakfast, smiling as she said, you can have some fish soup today to nourish yourself. Looking at her face, I suddenly asked softly, have you slept with him? Her smile froze instantly, and the color drained from her face. What are you saying? Her voice trembled. Have you slept with Joey? I asked very softly, but it felt like a knife. She was momentarily speechless, her eyes darting around. Ryan, are you misunderstanding something? I smirked, throwing back the blanket and getting out of the hospital bed. I just want to confirm, did my wife sleep with another man? She panicked and rushed up to grab me. Ryan, let me explain. It's not what you think. I'm asking you, did you? I roared, my eyes bloodshot. Ashley was in tears. Yes. The air went silent. I nodded, my voice as low as a dying breath. Then don't come to the operating room. I'm afraid I won't be able to stop myself from killing you before the anesthesia wears off. I walked to the hospital room window, pushed it open, and a cold wind rushed in. The deepest softness in my heart was completely scraped away, leaving only a desolate wasteland. I glanced back at her. She was still standing there, the hem of her clothes fluttering in the wind, her eyes filled with uttered pride and regret. Too bad it was too late. Too late. Ryan, this is just a pre-op MRI. It won't hurt, it'll be over soon, Ashley said softly, gently taking my arm, her voice as tender as a dream. Okay, I nodded, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. She didn't notice that the doctor sitting in the corner of the waiting room wearing a white coat was Liam, my medical examiner friend, in disguise. He slipped a special miniature injection from his sleeve and placed it in my hand. Inject this. It'll stop your pulse for 30 seconds, slow your breathing, and make you appear near death. It'll look like sudden cardiac arrest. I gripped the needle tightly and said softly, let's begin. The lights above the examination table were blinding, and Ashley stood behind the glass window, watching as I was pushed into the scanner, a faint smile on her lips. At that moment, she probably thought I had really come to my senses. I pressed the plunger, and the drug rushed into my veins. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt like I was being pulled into an icy sea. The monitor beeped sharply. A doctor exclaimed, "Cardiac arrest. Resuscitation. Get Dr. Ashley here, quickly." 10 minutes later, I was pronounced dead. Patient Ryan, male, 29 years old, died today at 2:37 p.m. due to sudden cardiogenic arrest before surgery. Resuscitation efforts were unsuccessful. Ashley rushed into the emergency room and saw my cold face. She fell to her knees. "Impossible, he was just smiling and talking to me. He can't be dead." She threw herself on me, hugging my body covered with a white sheet, and cried broken-heartedly, "Ryan, I was wrong, please come back. You can scold me, hit me, do anything you want. I really know I was wrong. I'll do anything you want, just don't leave so quietly." Tears soaked the white sheet, but I could only watch her sobbing in the hidden compartment behind the emergency room, my heart clenching. Not because of pity, but because the way she as crying was too much like a perfect actress. That night, a temporary mourning hall was set up in St. Jude's Hospital. White flowers, white curtains, and mournful music played softly. Ashley, dressed in mourning clothes, knelt before the memorial tablet, lost in grief. Joey sat beside her, comforting her softly. "Don't cry. He's gone." She turned to look at him, her eyes unfocused. Is he really dead?" "Dead as a doornail," Joey chuckled, his tone light. "We didn't even have to lift a finger. He died of cardiac arrest himself. It's a gift from God. Remember what you said? When he dies, the property and the house will all be yours." He reached out and put his hand on her shoulder, his tone suggestive. "Ashley, let's start a new life, shall we?" Ashley trembled and shook off his hand, muttering, "Get away from me." A hint of anger flashed in Joey's eyes. "Why are you acting like such a saint? You betrayed him a long time ago." He stood up and walked towards the doctor's office, saying he was going to get some sedatives. Ashley knelt alone before the memorial tablet, trembling, repeating to herself, "I really didn't want you to die. Ryan, I just thought you wouldn't leave." Just then, the large screen in the hospital's back-end monitoring room lit up. A recording suddenly began to play automatically, broadcast simultaneously over the hospital's public address system. It was a familiar male voice, with a sinister laugh. "Sis, Ryan is cooperating too well this time. To keep your position, he has to die." Then Ashley's cold, piercing voice said, "Make it clean." The voice was clear, every word cutting to the bone. The hallway of St. Jude's Hospital erupted. Nurses ran around spreading the news, doctors exchanged glances, and the air became thick with tension. Joey had just walked out of the doctor's office, his face instantly turning pale. Who turned on the broadcast?" In the morning hall, Ashley froze the moment the broadcast ended. "SH." He slowly looked up, her eyes blank, until Joey stumbled in. "Did you kill Ryan?" she screamed, lunging forward and grabbing Joey by the collar, pounding on him like a madwoman. "Did you record that? You wanted to drag me down to hell with you, didn't you?" Joey's eyes rolled back as she choked him. In the struggle, they both fell under my portrait. I stood in the stairwell on the hospital rooftop of St. Jude's Hospital, watching the chaotic scene below, and smiled ironically. "It's Ryan!" A cry suddenly burst out in the lobby of St. Jude's Hospital. Joey was being held down by security, and Ashley knelt in front of the mourning hall, her makeup smeared with tears. The moment she heard those words, she felt like she had been electrocuted and suddenly looked up. At the door, the man who was supposed to be dead stood against the light, dressed in black, his eyes as cold as ice. I was back. This farce should end. Ashley jumped up and ran towards me. "Ryan! You're not dead. You're alive." "You scared me to death." I stepped back, dodging her outstretched hand. She stood there, trembling, like a bird that had lost its nest. I looked at her, my voice not loud, but clear and distinct. "Dr. Ashley, if you like Joey, you can go sit in his jury box." Ashley's face turned ashen, her lips trembled, but she didn't say a word. In less than an hour, the top-tier hospital's administration intervened and launched an investigation. I submitted all the recordings, surveillance footage, and copies of the testimony to the Health Bureau and the local media. That night, the top news headlines exploded online. Ethical scandal erupts at well-known top-tier hospital. Attending physician conspires with intern to murder patient. leaked recording confirmed. Intern claims her husband must die, hospital faces trust crisis, healthcare or murder? In-depth tracking of Ryan's feigned death report, Joey was suspended and under investigation, and Ashley was forced to re-sig in from her position as associate director and face an ethics review. Some cursed Joey as insane, some denounced Ashley as cold-blooded, and some said I was acting too much, but I didn't care anymore. A few days later, I met Ashley on the hospital rooftop. She was wearing a hospital gown, her face pale, staring blankly at the city below. The wind was strong, her hair was disheveled, and there was still a piece of 4-drip tape on her hand. I thought, she said hoarsely, you would forgive me. I didn't speak. She walked closer to me, with that familiar humility. You used to be the gentlest person, the one who never wanted to make me sad. Ryan, please don't be like this, okay? I've already given up my medical license. I really know I was wrong. I looked at her, my heart a wasteland. The old me, I said slowly, would definitely forgive you. But the me now is someone who has been killed by you 102 times. Tell me, how am I supposed to forgive you? She finally burst into tears, covering her face and squatting down, her whole being like a festering regret, soaked by the rain on the hospital rooftop. I stood in front of her, not reaching out, not offering an umbrella. I wasn't the Ryan she used to know anymore. After Ashley and I divorced, I quit my job and left the city. No one knew where I went, only that winter, a non-profit platform called Deep Dive emerged. It only did one thing: expose corruption in the healthcare system, anonymously reveal medical malpractice cases, and fight for justice for the victims. 6 months later, I received an unsigned letter. There were only 2 sentences in the letter. I'm not atoning for my sins, I just want to live with you, even if you never look back at me. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer, without replying. That night, it rained. I sat in my office, looking out the window, and suddenly remembered Ashley crying like a child in the rain. Once, she was the person I loved the most. Now, she is the direction I will never look back on in this life. I don't hate you anymore, Ashley. But I will never love you again. I did it, how to come back from 102 deaths. And I also learned how to save myself from your hands. The end.